Welcome to Everyone's Talking Money, where we get brutally honest about money, mindset, and making life richer. Okay, let's talk about something that's been bothering me. You know those conversations where someone older goes off about kids these days? They're too soft. They don't want to work. If they just stop wasting money on their fancy coffee and avocado toast, maybe they could actually afford something. Here's the thing. I've been a money expert for nearly 20 years, and I am tired of this conversation because we are looking at it all wrong. Every generation thinks the next one has it easier or is screwing it up somehow. The Romans complained about their youth. Your grandparents probably said something about your parents. And now everyone's blaming millennials and Gen Z for what exactly? Being broke, not buying houses, eating brunch? But what if I told you this has nothing to do with work ethic or avocado toast? What if the entire economic game changed and we're all just arguing about the wrong things? Today, we are getting real about what's actually happening with money across generations. Because when you look at the actual numbers, not the headlines, not the hot takes, just the math, the story is completely different than what everyone's talking about. Shari here, and this is Everyone's Talking Money. We're going to figure this out together. Let me paint you a picture, and I want you to really think about this. It's 1970. You're 30 years old. And if you're like most people your age, there's better than a 50% chance you're married and you own your own home. And that house, you probably paid somewhere between 2 and 3 times your annual salary for it. So if you're making $10,000 a year, which was decent money, you could realistically buy a house for $20,000 to $30,000. The math worked. It wasn't necessarily easy, but it was doable if you followed the basic script. Finish school, get a job, get married, buy a house. Now, let's talk about today. If you're 30 right now, here's your reality. Less than 15% of people your age are both married and homeowners. Less than 15%. That's crazy compared to just 50 years ago. That house your parents bought for 3 times their salary, today it costs 7 to 8 times your income. If you're making 50,000, good luck finding anything decent under 350,000. And that's if you live somewhere affordable. This isn't about young people being picky or having different priorities. The math literally doesn't work the same way anymore. But somehow we're still judging everyone by the old rules. We're expecting people to succeed at a game where the rules completely changed, but nobody updated the playbook. And then we act surprised when the same strategies don't work. So, what the hell happened? How did we go from most 30-year-olds can afford houses to almost nobody can? And that house really costs $1 million? Seriously, think back. What did 10-year-old you used to think $1 million house looked like? I'm confident it's not what $1 million houses today look like. Let's start with wages because this is where it gets frustrating. Worker productivity has absolutely skyrocketed since the 1970s. We're producing more value than ever, but our paychecks, they've basically stayed flat when you account for inflation. Think about that. 50 years of technological progress, and the average person can buy the same amount of stuff as someone in 1973. Meanwhile, the big things that define adult milestones, housing, healthcare, education, have gotten exponentially more expensive. And can we talk about student loans? Because this is where I really get worked up. In 1980, the average college graduate had about $2,000 in debt, adjusted for inflation. Today, over 30,000. Many people graduate with $50,000 or more in student debt. That's like starting your adult life with a mortgage payment, except you don't get a house. You get a piece of paper that says you're qualified to maybe get a job that might pay you enough to start paying back the money you borrowed to get qualified. It's honestly insane when you say it out loud. Then there's the interest rate roller coaster. Yes, rates were crazy high in the early 80s, sometimes over 15%. But here's what people forget. Wages were rising fast too, and you could actually qualify for loans without jumping through 17 hoops. Today's buyers are dealing with rates that doubled in 2 years, plus lending standards that require perfect credit, huge down payments, and debt to income ratios that would have been laughable decades ago. And let's not forget about the stuff that just costs more now. Childcare costs more than college in most states. Even with good insurance, healthcare premiums eat up huge chunks of paychecks. Groceries, utilities, gas, everything takes up a bigger slice of your income than it used to. This isn't one problem. It's everything at once. But we're still out here acting like the solution is making your coffee at home. Okay, but if the economics are this clear, why do we keep hearing about lazy millennials and entitled Gen Zers? Why does everyone still think this is about avocado toast? Because that story is easier to digest. Young people face complex systemic economic challenges, doesn't get clicks. Imagine that as the headline. But millennials are killing the housing market because they love brunch, does get the clicks, and it does get people fired up. Let's do some actual math on this avocado toast thing because it drives me crazy. Say you buy avocado toast twice a week at $12 each. That's about $1,200 a year. That is a healthy chunk of money. But now, if you saved that money for a house down payment, how long would it take you to save $70,000 for a 20% down payment on a $350,000 home? 58 years. 58 years from giving up your avocado toast. The math doesn't work because the story does, because it lets everyone believe that success is about individual choices. And that's psychologically comfortable. It means the world still makes sense. And if people are struggling, it must be their fault. Social media makes this worse. Older generations see young people posting about experiences or travel and assume that's where all their money goes. What they don't see are the student loan payments, the insane rent, the side hustles, and the anxiety about an uncertain future. Meanwhile, younger people see older folks who bought houses for what seems like pocket change, and they think they had it handed to them. They don't see the different challenges that generation faced. Both sides are looking at each other across the massive economic divide, but instead of recognizing the divide, we're arguing about character. We are having completely the wrong conversation. It's not about work ethic or spending habits. It's about people trying to succeed in totally different economic environments, then judging each other by the standards that don't even apply anymore. Here's why this isn't just a young people problem. It affects all of us, whether you're 25 or 65. When young adults can't buy homes, it doesn't just hurt them. It hurts the entire housing market, construction jobs, local tax revenues. It affects furniture stores, appliance companies, home improvement businesses. The economic ripple touches everyone. More importantly, home ownership has been how American families build wealth for generations. When that's out of reach for most people, we're not just talking about individual struggles. We're talking about the breakdown of how the middle class actually works. And delayed homeownership leads to delayed everything else. People get married later, have fewer kids, partly because they can't afford the stability previous generations took for granted. This has huge implications for Social Security, consumer spending, and who's going to take care of aging baby boomers. All of it. The labor market changes too. When people can't build wealth the traditional way, they stay in jobs longer, switch careers more often, or go the entrepreneurial route. This creates completely different workplace dynamics that affect everyone. Here's the big picture. When the traditional path to middle class stability breaks down, it destabilizes the whole economic system. We're all part of the same system, and when it changes this dramatically, we all have to adapt. This isn't generational warfare. It's recognizing that we're all trying to make it work, and the game changed for everyone. So, how do we move forward? How do we stop arguing and actually solve this? If you're from an older generation, here's what I'm asking. Listen before you give advice. Try to understand the new reality instead of assuming what worked for you should work for everyone. The young adults in your life aren't failing because they're lazy. They're trying to succeed in an economic environment that's fundamentally different from what you navigated. This doesn't diminish your struggles or achievements. It just means recognizing that strategies need to evolve. When you give advice, factor in student debt, housing costs, job market instability. These weren't major factors in your experience, but they're huge now. For younger people, here's my take. Learn the history. Understanding how we got here helps you advocate for change more effectively. Your parents and grandparents weren't handed everything. They faced different challenges in different circumstances. Focus on building wealth strategies that work now. That might mean non-traditional paths to homeownership, different investment approaches, multiple income streams. The old playbook doesn't work, but that doesn't mean there's no path forward. It just looks different. And recognize that some older folks are genuinely trying to help, even when their advice feels out of touch. Try to extract the good principles, living below your means, building emergency funds, investing for the long term, and adapt them to your situation. For everyone, we need honest conversations about what's actually happening instead of talking past each other. We need to acknowledge that different generations are playing different games with different rules. Most importantly, let's focus on solutions instead of blame. Whether you're 25 or 65, we are all trying to build financial security. That's the common ground we can work with. Here's what I want you to take away. This isn't about who works harder or who deserves more. It's about recognizing that we're all trying to succeed, but the playing field has completely different rules now. The 30-year-old in 1970 who bought a house for 3 times their salary wasn't necessarily more disciplined than the 30-year-old today paying 7 times their salary in rent. They were just operating in different economies. Understanding this doesn't excuse anyone or diminish anyone's achievements. It just gives us an accurate picture so we can make better decisions and create better solutions. So here's my question for you. What would you do if you had to start over in today's economy? Not as judgment, but as a real thought experiment. Student debt, current housing prices, today's job market. What would your strategy be? And if you're already navigating this economy, what's actually working? What strategies are you using to build wealth in this environment? Because I want to hear from you. Share your stories on Instagram at Everyone's Talking Money or send me a message. because the more we understand each other's real experiences, the better we can find solutions that actually work. And remember, money is a tool to help you live life on your terms. So go out there and make it happen. I'll talk to you next time.